We live? I think we're
Are we
live.
live?
I think we are. We're live.
Are we posing live?
I think we're posing live.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we're 16 seconds in. Oh, that's great.
We've been posing for ages. Right?
I know, we've been waiting here for 20 minutes. It's crazy. So, for those of you that have no idea who I am, I'm Simon Brooks. Hello.
I'm not.
No. This is Mara Menzies, who is a friend and colleague of mine, who is Scottish Kenyan, and you've just got back from
Timpanogos in Utah. Mm-hmm.
Utah. So I put my Timpanogos t-shirt on,
Mm-hmm.
and Mara's got her Timpanogos hoodie on.
Yes, I do.
And where did you were in Amsterdam before Timpanogos, right?
No, that was just in transit.
Oh,
It's been a little bit of a busy time because I was in Edinburgh for the Edinburgh Book Festival, and then I was in Armenia for the Tumanyan Storytelling Festival, the second one ever, and then was in Kenya, and then through Amsterdam to Salt Lake City.
Ah.
Yeah, so a bit of a trek.
In case you don't figure out her accent, it's Scottish, Kenyan,
Aye.
Scottish, Kenyan.
Ndio.
So, was that your first time in Timpanogos?
My first time in Timpanogos, yeah. But it was the first time I ever came to the States for storytelling was Utah, though. I was in Salt Lake City, in a place, West Jordan, for Story Crossroads.
Which is Rachel Hedman, right?
Rachel Hedman, 2017.
Who is another wonderful human being.
Fireball human being.
Yeah, she is. Oh my gosh, she is type A++, right?
She is. She is.
She organizes stuff so well. If you've never looked at Story Crossroads, you should look at Story Crossroads. And if you've never been to Timpanogos, you got to go to Timpanogos because that's awesome. But we first met in Jonesboro, right?
Yes.
That was our face-to-face thingy, right?
Yeah.
And
what year was that? It's been a while.
2019.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then right after that, the next time we spoke, I think you were in a tent.
I was up to something, right?
She was writing a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should go and get the book while you tell them a little bit about the book. Is that all right?
Them, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go around the back of you so I don't distract.
Sure. Okay. So
I'll be right back.
Yeah, and I will tell you about the book. So the book is called Blood and Gold, and it was actually not an idea to publish it. The publisher approached me because it was, first of all, a show that I did at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Same name, Blood and Gold, that actually won the Stage Edinburgh Award at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival last year, 2022. And then the book was also Scottish Book of Fiction 2022. So there's me blowing my own trumpet. But it was looking at the legacy of colonialism and slavery, but using myth and legend as a way of looking at some of these issues. But telling the story of a mother who was dying, and she puts all of her stories into this box so that her daughter can have access to them. And of course, all of these stories are then just basically giving the girl an insight into where she came from, her place in the world, and just different tools that she has to navigate it. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
And the artwork in it is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. Who did the artwork for you?
This wonderful woman. Her name was Eri Griffin. Her name is Eri. She's still with us. Eri Griffin. But yeah, she was just this really beautiful, abstract, sort of black, white, grey ink artist. But she is of Japanese heritage.
I was going to say.
So I guess she was drawing on her kind of Japanese mythology or her Japanese influence.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much pen and ink paintbrush work, which is absolutely gorgeous. I can't get any close because I don't have any lights close to the camera. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could zoom in, but the story is just, it's incredible. I really liked it. Yeah. I really liked your story.
Thank you.
So much so I bought the book. Yeah. You're gonna have to sign it before you. I've forgotten that was there.
Yeah, it's so big.
So this is Mara doing the performance of Black and Gold, right?
Blood and gold.
Blood and gold.
Yes,
sorry.
Blood and gold. Yeah, it's called Blood and Gold because wherever there is gold, you are absolutely sure to find blood.
Yeah, that's a true statement.
Yes.
Which is a lot of those things, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the and you didn't see Antonio perform his Malaga.
No.
So if you need to try and see Antonio Hoscher's A Slave Ship Called Malaga, because that talks a lot about slavery. And one of the things that he talked about when we were just chit-chatting about stuff was that slavery was everywhere and in everything. It was just it was a deeply ingrained part of society. And even free people had slaves because it made them look more rich and powerful. And you could rent slaves to be your slave for the evening, like slave consort or something like that, which is, when you think about it, it's crazy, because that was the culture that it came in at that time. Everything was connected to slavery, which is, and therefore blood, right?
Yeah. But I think that was, one of the reasons that I wanted to write about that or tell stories, which is, created a storytelling show about that, is that I also felt that it's such a hideous part of our history. But the conversations and the way we were having conversations about it was actually, it wasn't happening. It was all very, good, bad, right, wrong, sort of victim, oppressor, us, them. It was very, very binary in its approach, and it just made conversations really difficult because nobody wants to be the oppressor,
right.
And nobody wants to be seen as ignorant or asking questions that maybe there was a little bit of not understanding some of the things, that some of the stories or some of the actual historical events. So it became really difficult to have these conversations. And I thought, I want to explore it not through fact and history, because I'm not very good at remembering fact and history, but through the soft approach, which is through stories, through myth and legend. Because, if you think about slavery, it's existed since time immemorial. This particular slave trade was a completely different ballgame altogether, but all of it is rooted in these things that make us very human, which is greed and oppression and power. And and if it's not one group doing it now, in 100 years it's going to be another group, and then in 1,000 years it'll be another group committing these same atrocities, and we just don't seem to learn from them. So if by using myth and legend, these are stories that could be applied in 1,000 years time, they're still going to make sense, because sadly that's what us humans do. But they're very, very real things that do have consequences for societies and individuals living, separated hundreds of years from a particular event. Because even Kenya, we're very, we were colonized by the British, but we're still living under a lot of those colonial laws that were introduced.
Right. Same in India.
Yeah. But
right?
But the Europeans are no longer, British are no longer in charge. So why keep them? We actually do have the power to get rid of them, but actually it does benefit the people in power. So there is no incentive to get rid of them. So there's actually, when you're looking at the legacy of colonialism and slavery, it's not talking about stuff that happened then, because stuff that happened then actually has relevance today. And this is how we are living under a lot of the stuff that started back then as well. So I was just using these stories as a way to think about that and look at it, as well as immigration, as well as
immigration.
Yes,
you an immigrant?
Absolutely. Do you know?
Which country are you an immigrant of, though?
Scotland.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were
by birth, by blood, and by immigration. I'm 3 times Scottish.
See, I'm still an immigrant in the US. I still have my British passport, and I have my green card. In fact, the first time I got a green card, it was pink.
Really?
Yeah. And I said, it wasn't that long ago. It was made of card. And I said, pink. And this, this is the security guys, right, that hand these things to you, very serious people. And he handed me this pink green. I said, I thought they were green. He said, they're pink. And I said, you got any blue ones for boys?
I'm surprised they let you in.
Well, I very nearly didn't get let in. He says, do you want this or not? I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Thank you very much. But yeah, me and my mouth. Right?
Indeed.
So let's play it up. Tell us about Timpanogos. You have fun there, right?
I had a lot of
a terrible time?
No. It was an amazing time. From the second I landed to being picked up and taken to the hotel, and then enjoying all this different storytelling, storytellers, and then the way they told their stories, and then the different interactions with different people. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
So who was there? I know who was there, but tell us who was there.
Oh, do you know who was there?
Paul Strickland, Antonio Hosher.
Yes.
Mara Menzies was there.
Somebody did call me Maria.
They did.
One of the MCs, I had to correct them. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maria.
They didn't correct themselves like I just did.
No.
Diane Flatt was there.
Yes. With Eric. Eric, the musician.
Oh,
wonderful musician who they tell their stories together. And then of course, and her husband. Well,
John.
no, was he?
John McCutcheon.
Yeah. Oh, is that? I didn't know that was her husband.
Yes.
Oh,
Indeed, his husband.
He was there. Her husband was there too.
He's
Yes.
a phenomenal musician,
He's
isn't
wonderful.
he?
Really,
Yeah, he's a
really
really nice
good.
guy as well.
Yeah.
I like John.
Yeah. I should have picked up on that, I suppose. But
That's when they're leaning against each other and stuff.
well, they weren't performing together.
Right.
Every
They
time
don't.
they were
Yeah.
always doing separate things. So,
Okay. All right.
yes. Yeah. Jennifer Monroe was
Oh,
there.
she was. That's right.
Yes.
Jennifer,
Mhm.
fellow Brit. Actually,
Yeah.
she went to the dark side. She became an American citizen. Isn't she? She's wonderful.
I don't know. Would she appreciate being called Mumsy? No. Not with a nose
she
ring
wouldn't.
and her many piercings.
Yeah.
She's
a very
wonderful.
radical mum. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. And then, of course, Shona Lee, who is another Brit
Yes.
as well, when she
Yes.
chooses to be.
Because sometimes she chooses to be
Jew, Dutch, European Jew.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's when the British do silly things, which in the last 5 years, she pretty much claims that she's Dutch now, right? Dutch Jewish.
Yes. Well, when the English are being silly and you can opt out, then you might as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell everybody here a little bit about Shona Lee, because I had no idea who she was or what she did. And I'd seen her name everywhere. But...
Yeah, and rightly so, because she deserves to be seen everywhere. So she is, I can never get the pronunciation right, so forgive me, but the last remaining Drusilla from the Jewish tradition. So her stories were passed down from her grandmother to her, and they have these beautiful gem cycles. There's the opal cycle, diamond cycle, emerald cycle, and then there are sub-stories within sub-cycles within these cycles. So you enter into stories within stories within stories, and she just has this incredible gift where she's able to take you on these amazing journeys and then bring you back out into the previous story and then the other story and then back into that main story. She's just phenomenal, and the way she does it, keeping to time, I don't know how she does it.
Right.
Yeah,
because you got to be on. So when you're in a festival, you have a clock on the stage, and the clock tells you how long you've got until you're off, and you got to keep it right there. And the other thing about that you were telling me earlier, if during a story she says there's a man with a half a face, but that's a story for another day. If the audience, why don't you tell me?
Yeah, well, if the audience wants to hear that story, they say, well, wait, we want to hear that story. So she's obliged to tell that story. So she begins this story. And then if there is another story inside that one, she'll say, oh, but that's a story for another day. If we want to hear that story, then you say, hey, we want to hear that story. So she then has to tell that one, then get back to the story of the man with half a face, and then get back to the original story. So she's just weaving these stories in and out, and she is just mind-blowing. I absolutely love her. She's one of my favorite storytelling sisters in the entire world.
Oh.
A lot of love for Shona.
Yeah, when Mara was telling me this earlier over lunch, I was just gobsmacked. And thousands of stories you say that she knows?
Yes, thousands of stories.
And she's the last
one.
This doula of stories, if you will.
Yeah.
Is wow.
Yeah.
And she's
and then you're caught in this thing of, because now we live in a world where everyone wants to extract stories. Disney's hunting and seeking content. But then there is such depth in these stories that you don't want them to be just released into the wild, ready to be grasped by any nasty, slippery fingered creature. So it's how do you care for them?
The dark ink people in your book, right? The shadow people, or whatever they're called. I can't remember. I read it a while back. Yeah. What are they called?
The Shadow Man. Just one character, but I guess takes many forms.
Yeah, right? He does. He takes on all those forms, and doesn't he spread out at one point?
Yes.
Right? See, I did read it.
Yes, you did. Let's see how thumbed the pages are.
I read my books very carefully. So Carl Goff is with us. Hi, Carl. You know Carl.
Hello.
Do you know Carl Goff?
Yes, of course I know Carl.
Well, I hope so, yeah. So Carl Goff is with us. We've got 7 other people as well. If you've got any questions for Mara or myself, then just throw them in the chit chat, and hopefully it should pop up on I've got my little laptop down here, and then we can respond. Hi, Carl. It's good to see you here. Carl's a really good storyteller as well, and he's been on Friday with Friends before.
Yeah. And
he's a phenomenal guy. He's in Swansea. You know what's funny? I went over there to see my dad, who lives in Swansea. So I phoned up Carl. I was like, Carl, you want to get together? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I was like, is there any storytelling going on? And he's like, well, yeah, it's in Cardiff. And I was like, that's just up the road. Yeah. And he's like, well, it's like 20 minutes away, 40 minutes away, whatever. I was like, that's how far I go to get groceries. Let's go. And so we went. And it was so good. There was the Cardiff Storytelling Circle with Kath Little.
Okay,
that was so much fun.
She's fun. A really lovely storyteller.
And the thing that blew me away with that is that there was, I don't know, there must have been at least 30 people sitting in a circle, and every person told a story. And then at the very end, she said, "Thank you, so and so, for telling the story about," and she would skim over the brief part of the story or a section of the story that she liked, and then we'll go on to the next bit. Like, this is like 20, 30 people in a circle that she did this with. And she remembered, she didn't have notes or anything. It was absolutely incredible. Yeah. So I have a huge amount of respect for
I wish I had that gift. Gosh.
I know I don't have that gift.
No,
I don't. No. I don't. So do you think we should tell a story, seeing as we're talking about stories?
Okay.
Do you want to tell a story?
No, I have to think about a story. So you can tell a story first, and then in the meantime, my brain can wake up.
Didn't I give you enough coffee?
No.
I have to say, my wife is in here.
Oh yes, I've just seen her feet.
Her feet are underneath the blinding light in the garage here in New London, New Hampshire. All right. So, here we go. We've got some comments. So lovely to see you together in the same physical space. It is. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it when storytellers come and visit me and we get to hang out. And Jane Dorfman, who's another really good storyteller. We had a great time. We did the Stone Soup Storytelling Festival.
Okay.
And they put most of it. There were 12 new voices, and we all spent the same time together in this one Airbnb. Okay. It was like it's like a college party, except with people way too old to be doing that sort of thing. But we bonded so tightly. It was absolutely incredible. It's such a wonderful experience. And so Jane says, "Good to see you, Mara and Simon." She did say me as well. It wasn't not just you.
Good. Well, good to see. Well, good to know you're there anyway, even though we can't see you.
Yes. So, you've got a story that you might want to hear, Sarah? No. Okay. All right.
So you're free.
I'm free. I don't know. Yeah. Any.
Simon is unleashed.
I am unleashed, but I don't know what story to tell. So I could tell a story that Helen Wales told when I was in Wales, but she's British, English.
Yes.
But I'm not sure. I loved it, and I changed it a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell it to the camera. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm just going to tell it to the camera so that we keep people engaged. Now I always take my glasses off when I tell stories. Don't really know why, but I do. I think
so we can see everything, right? Yeah.
Not when I take my glasses off.
No, it doesn't matter what you can see. It's like so everybody else can see. So
that's true.
Everyone else can see. Yeah.
It's true. So once upon a time, a very long time ago, there was this king and this queen who wanted a child. The king obviously wanted a son because kings always want sons so that they can take over the kingdom after they've gone, right? I don't know why. It's just ego, right? Male ego. And so the king and the queen, they tried for a long time to have a child, and it was fun, but they never had a child. And then all of a sudden, when the king was getting very, very old, along came a daughter. I know it's not like that. I was there for both of mine. It's not thump, I know that. But this daughter came along. She was probably this big. And they loved a daughter, and they spoiled her rotten because they waited so long for this child to come. They gave her everything that she needed and everything that she didn't need. She had a gold pacifier, which was fine when she was on her back because it would just stay there. But when she rolled on her side, they'd have to pick it back up and because it was so heavy. They gave her they didn't give her linen clothes to wear as a baby. They gave her silk clothes. She had a whole wardrobe that was filled with clothes the color blue. There was another wardrobe that was filled with clothes the color yellow. She didn't have one pony. She had 2 ponies and 3 horses. That's 5 equestrian type thingies.
Not bad.
No, not bad at all. And do you think she grew up as a well-adjusted young female, being given everything that she wanted?
Of course not.
No.
No.
Whiny. Well, her father and mother, the king and the queen, they decided that it was time for her to get married. And so they told her that they were going to marry her to the prince in the kingdom next door. It was a small kingdom. Both of them were small. This prince. I don't want to marry him. They give him a nickname, Mr. Prince Backward Pants, because he always wears his trousers the wrong way round. I don't want to marry him. And she started to list off thing after thing that she didn't like about him. And the king said, but we're a small kingdom and they're a small kingdom. And there are other countries that are talking about invading us. We need to marry the two of you to build a stronger community together so we can defend ourselves. But I don't want to marry him. I want to choose myself. Well, what do you think we should do? Said the king. I want to have a big party, and we can invite all the princes from all the areas around, and we can invite kings and dukes and sons of princes and stuff like that, and I'll get to choose. And so all the invitations were sent out. And about a month or two later, when the party was going to happen, where all these people were going to arrive, including a few warriors, because she wanted to spice things up a little in the choice, you know how it is, and they all started to arrive. Now, the coaches that they had in those days weren't like the coaches that you came in on today, right? There was no lavatory at the back. There was no AC. There was no Wi-Fi, because I hadn't invented Wi-Fi back then. You know, it was like a rough ride, bouncy, hot and sweaty. It was the middle of summer. And these sons of dukes and lords, they get up and they rip their shirts off and they start washing. And she sees how disgusting and sweaty and smelly they are. And they she runs back into the castle and she looks at her father. Daddy, I don't want to marry anything. They're smelly. You wanted this party. You go back out and see one of these boys suits you. And so she went back out and she saw how hairy their chests were. It was like a mat of bear fur on some of them. And she didn't like that either. But she sat there looking at them and she realized that she really wanted to marry the most powerful of all. Do you think the most powerful of all was amongst them?
Of course not.
No.
You wouldn't come to something like that.
No, they wouldn't. They were already there, but they were up in the sky. It was the sun. She realized that it was the sun that made them sweat. It was the sun that made them smell. The sun was the most powerful of all. It grew the plants. It could be so hot. It would marry. So she ran back into the castle. Daddy, I know who I want to marry. Oh, yes, and who is that, my dear? I want to marry the sun. Well, they're all somebody's son, my dear. Which one in particular? No, Daddy, don't be silly. The orb up in the sky, the sun. The orb up in the sky. You can't marry the sun. But Daddy, I want to marry the sun. It's the most powerful of all. But my dear, you can't marry the Daddy. I want to. And she got more and more heated until he couldn't stand it anymore. He said, all right. I will send 4 horsemen to the 4 corners of the earth, because it was square and flat back in those days, right? And so he sent these horses off with messengers to see if she could marry the sun. And she went back outside. She went to the blacksmith to have some special glasses made so she could look up at her fiancé, potentially. And she was up there and she's looking up and this cloud starts to cover the sun. And she is most perturbed by this. How dare you cover up my fiancé? You're making everything cooler and you're making everything darker. Wait, I thought the sun was the most powerful, but you're a cloud and you're more powerful than the sun. She ran back inside the castle. Daddy, I don't want to marry the sun anymore. Oh, thank goodness for that. Who do you want to marry? I want to marry the cloud. Well, there are 3 McClouds. You can't marry all 3 of them. Which one are you talking about? Not the McClouds, the cloud up in the sky, Daddy. The fluffy things that look like sheep up in the sky. Yes, Daddy. But you can't marry a cloud. Daddy, I want to marry a cloud. But my dear, Daddy, I want to marry the cloud. It made everything cooler and it made everything dark. It's more powerful than the sun. Daddy, I want to marry the cloud. Well, I suppose I could send out 4 more horsemen to the 4. Yes, please. And off they went. And she went back outside and she's admiring the cloud. Now, it's getting later in the day now, right? And that the sun is changing color. It's starting to shine oranges and yellows on the clouds. And there's a slight breeze that changes the shape of the cloud. And she's looking up and she's, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. You're an artistic type. Look at you changing colors and shapes. Oh, I always wanted to marry an artistic person. But wait, the wind is breaking you up. Wind, stop breaking the cloud up. Oh, the wind, it's more powerful than the cloud, and the cloud's more powerful than Daddy. Oh, what is it, my dear? I don't want to marry the cloud anymore. Oh, that's marvelous. I'll call the 4 horsemen back. Who do you want to marry? I want to marry the wind. The wind. Yes, Daddy, the wind. But you can't even see the wind. I don't care, Daddy. The wind is more powerful. It started to break up the cloud, and the cloud's more powerful than the sun because it made everything dark and shadowy. I want to marry the wind. But how could you know that the wind is even? I will see it blowing through the flowers, Daddy. I want to marry the wind. I'll send 4 horsemen to the 4 corners of the world to see if you can marry the wind. And so the 4 horsemen were sent off. And she went outside. And she felt the wind in her hair, and she said, "Oh, I love the way you run your fingers over me. It's so wonderful. But I want to make sure that you're really, really powerful. So you see those mountains over there? I want you, wind, to blow those mountain tops down." And of course, the wind couldn't blow the mountain tops down, not in the time frame that she was looking at anyway. And she ran back inside, and you know what happened? "Daddy, Daddy, what? I want to marry somebody else. It's not the wind. Who is it this time? It is the mountain." Is that one of the warriors? Is that maybe a nickname, a performance name, maybe? No, Daddy, the mountains where the goat herds take the goats up in the summer. A mountain? Yes, Daddy, I want to marry the mountain. I'll send 4 more horsemen to the 4 corners of the world to see if you can marry the mountain. Thank you, Daddy. And she went outside. She saddled a horse. No, she didn't saddle a horse. She had someone saddle a horse for her, and she helped up on the horse with a little step ladder, and she climbed up on the horse, and she rode off. And she got to the mountains, and she felt those rocks that were firm and hard and warm from the sun. And she saw that this was a firm, solid mass. And the mountains aren't going to run away on me. No, they weren't. And she saw this cave, and she went inside the cave. "Well, this is marvelous. Not only you're strong, and you keep the warmth in your bones, and you'll find shelter for me from the rain when it comes in those horrible clouds. And if the sun gets too hot, I can come in the cave and you'll cool me. This is a match made in heaven." And then she heard this sound. Do you know what it was?
No. I can guess.
Yeah, go on.
Like a rabbit or something.
Close.
Oh, okay.
It was a rat. Yeah, a huge rat. Unless you can't just tell. Then it was a massive rat, right? And this rat was sharpening its teeth on the rocks, and she could see that it was chewing the rocks away. And stop it! You're eating my. The rat is eating the rocks. The rocks that I thought were more powerful than the wind, that I thought was more powerful than the clouds, that I thought was more powerful than the sun. The rat's the most powerful of all. And she picked the rat up by the tail, and she caught it in her hand, and she started, "Ow, don't bite." I suppose all boys need training. And she petted, and she said, "I'm going to take you home, and I'm going to make you my husband." And she climbed back on a horse and rode back to the castle. "Daddy, I want to marry this rat." But she told him her thoughts. And the king looked at the rat, and he looked at his daughter, and he looked at the rat, and he agreed. He knew that she wasn't going to be the first woman to marry a rat, and neither would she be the last. The end.
That's not how I expected you to finish that story.
Well, you see, so Helen, the end of the story that Helen told.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Helen.
Yeah.
It just ends with the king marrying the rat to the girl.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as I heard that, I was like, because.
Yeah.
And so I asked her afterwards, I could tell that story, and she said very nicely that I could. Mm-hmm. And so I started to tell that story. Yeah. And so thanks, Helen, for that story. So I always kind of joke about it because her name is Wales, but she's English.
But she's English, yeah.
And it's an English story that I heard in Wales.
Yeah.
So have we got any more comments? I've got to put my glasses on.
Well, stories definitely travel, right?
They do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They do. No more comments.
No. I might have a story.
We've got some giggles and some laughs. That's good.
Yeah. I might have a story that may complement yours.
Okay.
It's a slightly different take on it, though.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
It's not the Stonecutter, is it?
No, I'm very bad with naming stories as well.
Oh, you are?
Yes, at the Timpanogos festival, I had to write down which stories, because when they
put that's right.
online, they want to know, like, okay, this story has this title. Yeah, but sometimes they don't always have titles. You just know the stories.
And the other thing, sorry to butt in, sorry.
No, it's okay.
The other thing is, so because I was talking with Bill Lepp and there's Jeff Doyle and some of the other TV detailers. Sometimes we give a story a name.
Yeah.
In its written form or on a CD or whatever if we record it, but we have another name for it, which is how we as storytellers know it. But I think Bill Lepp said the same thing. Yes. Oh yeah, it's the truck story.
Yeah. But the truck story is not the flashiest title, is it?
No, but
you know exactly what it is.
Right,
yes,
right,
you know what it is.
You do. So I'm going to slide out a little way so that you can be the main focus, because you should be.
Well, you're kind of there. Then you're going to be. You will have your nose in view, so we don't want your nose in view. But okay, this is. Look, we might even have Mo in view.
Mo's just arrived.
Hello. Well, I'm not going to tell a story about a dog. I'm actually going to tell a story about a cat. Yes, and I know you have a cat that I haven't actually seen seen the cat yet,
Yeah.
hiding somewhere.
She is.
Yes, but you know, not all cats used to live indoors. Did you know that? Nope. They all lived out in the wilds, and they hunted in packs, and it was a very brutal, savage, vicious life. So they would all race after a creature, and there was one little wildcat, and she hated this lifestyle. She hated the conversations that revolved around it, who was the strongest and the fastest and the best hunter. And she thought, my goodness, surely there must be more to life than this. She hated the sweat, she hated itching, she hated just constant boring conversation. And she thought, I've had enough. I'm going to leave the pack behind. I'm going to go off in search of the most wonderful creature in the world. And so she did. She left, and a few days later, she was there resting in the grass when suddenly she heard something. And it was an antelope. And this antelope, her instinct was to chase, but instead she watched. And as she saw those long, elegant legs, she saw that smooth, glossy coat, she saw those big, beautiful brown eyes, and she thought, oh, look at antelope. Maybe antelope is the most wonderful creature in the world. And so she went to live with antelope. And they had the best time in the world. Antelope showed her how to leap and dance and spin and pirouette for fun. She learned how to be elegant and wander the earth like a ballerina. Oh, she loved Antelope. But one day, they went for a walk in the forest. And there was a rustling in the bushes. And then suddenly, Lion leapt out, and immediately, whoosh, Antelope was gone. Come back, my wonderful, beautiful Antelope. But he was gone, and little Wildcat was heartbroken. And oh, she was just about to cry when suddenly she looked at Lion, and she thought, oh, wow, look at that huge golden glossy mane. Look at those muscles and those claws, those sharp teeth. Look at the arrogance of Lion. Maybe Lion is the most wonderful creature in the world. And so she went to live with Lion. And Lion showed her how to walk the earth like a queen, how to rest under the acacia tree and wait for food to be brought to her. Oh, she loved Lion. And one day they went for a walk in the forest. There was a rustling in the bushes. And then suddenly, Elephant stomped out, and immediately Lion crouched down low, growling and warning Elephant away. But Elephant was the king of the forest and had no time for such silly nonsense. And just as he approached and was about to crush Lion into the ground, Lion ran away. And little Wildcat, oh no, come back, my wild and wonderful Lion. But Lion was gone, and little Wildcat was heartbroken until she looked at Elephant, and she saw that huge, thick skin, those perfect ears, those long white tusks shimmering in the sunlight. She thought, look at Elephant's eyes, how wise Elephant is. And so she decided to live with Elephant, because she knew that Elephant must be the most wonderful creature in the world. And do you know, Elephant took her walking just as the sun was setting and talked about ancient stories, and she began to think and dream differently. She began to see the world from a whole new perspective, and she loved Elephant. But one day they went for a walk in the forest, and there was a rustling in the bushes. And then suddenly there was a strange sound. Whoosh! An elephant began to sway from side to side, and then he tottered and boom, he fell to the ground, and there was an arrow sticking out of his side. Oh no, my beautiful elephant, my wise and wonderful elephant, what's wrong? And when little Wildcat looked up, in the distance she saw a hunter with a bow and arrow. And at first she was horrified, but then she thought, wait a minute. Look at Hunter, this small, insignificant-looking creature. But the hunter has used his imagination, his creativity, and he's created this tool that has felled the mighty king of the forest. Maybe the hunter is the most wonderful creature in the world. And so she went to live with Hunter. And she had a lovely time, because every time Hunter came back from the hunt, he would throw her little tidbits of meat. And she lived high up in the rafters of his house. And then one day, as she was resting, She heard a terrible commotion. There was shouting and clattering and clanging and banging, and she looked down to see what was going on, and there on the ground outside the house was Hunter. And then he stood up, and in a big cloud of dust he ran away, and there in the doorway was Woman. And she knew that she had definitely found the most wonderful creature in the world. No rats in this story.
No rats in this story. No. None at all. None at all. I'm sticking on something. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's the carpet.
Yes.
That's all. So why did you hear that story? Is that it's not a Kenyan story, is it?
No, I heard it a long time ago. I can't remember who told it to me because it was not a professional storyteller.
Right.
But it was a gathering, and it's a story from Zimbabwe.
Right.
Yes.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Oh.
I wanted to look smart. No, I can't.
Oh, which part of Zimbabwe?
I don't know. I just knew it was from Zimbabwe. Ah, dear. Who was I talking to? Oh, yes. So I was talking to another friend and colleague of mine. She's a librarian colleague, Mary Wunderlich, who is a librarian over at Thetford Elementary School. And her brother...
I like her name.
Yeah, it's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Her brother goes out to Africa fairly regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He lives out there and works out there and comes back every once in a while. Yeah. So which part of Kenya do you live in right now?
I am at the coast, a beautiful place called Kilifi. So Mombasa is the main coastal town, and then there is the north coast and there is the south coast. The south coast is where I grew up, and then the north coast is where I am now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In a treehouse.
Which she built herself.
I had to throw that in there because I'm so proud of my treehouse.
You should. You should be proud. I mean, just to living in a treehouse is pretty darn cool. But to have built the treehouse, does it have running water?
It does. It's got solar. We're fully 100% solar. Got a flush toilet upstairs.
Flush toilet?
Flush toilet, yeah.
It has to be upstairs. You don't want to be downstairs.
And this is a good thing. So it's wrapped around this baobab tree. And so in the bathroom, that little toilet roll holder is actually a twig of a baobab tree.
Is it going to grow into a branch and get longer over time?
No, the branch is already there. It might. But currently, it's a very small twig.
Okay.
We'll see. Might have to force the toilet roll onto it.
So where does all the waste go then?
So it's
It must be a tube or something.
It overlooks a creek. So it's actually no. So it's riparian land. So I have to be very careful with my waste. So it goes into this tank, and then it is sucked off onto the plot, and then we dispose of it in a septic tank.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
So it goes through a septic system.
Goes through a septic system. But then the
That's
water, the hand washing, we use that. It's fresh water, and then we grow banana trees from that. So we have different water systems for different things. Yeah.
It's such a different life.
Yeah. And we have bush babies that come at 7. They announce themselves.
What are bush babies?
They're not monkeys, in the same way that lemurs are not monkeys.
Okay.
And they're nocturnal. And like monkeys can be quite annoying because they come 20, 30 at a time and they make a lot of noise and they're very destructive. Whereas the bush babies are really lovely. Like we have 3, mom, dad, and then the juvenile who has this beautiful whitish tail and has taken bananas from my hand twice now. And they also love vanilla yogurt.
Yes, you showed me the video of that. I didn't realize that was a bush baby.
That's a bush baby.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little kind of furry, beautiful little creature with big black eyes that look at you, and they pee on their hands, which makes them quite sticky. Yeah, but then when they get used to you, apparently they like jumping all over you. So that's why always wash yourself after you've been in contact with wild animals.
Because their hands might be covered in pee. That's gross. Don't you have hand sanitizer? Like before you get the bananas, you got to wash your hands in hands. Hold your hand up.
No.
Yeah, he probably eats it, right? All right, let's see if we've got any more comments. So, your story, that's another good story. I love that story. That's a really good one. And the treehouse, how incredible, yes. Laura Isolde is Perry's, Perry's like just gone off to college. Well, Perry's kindergarten teacher, and she joined. And Monica, I used to work with her, but remotely, because she was in San Antonio and I was in Portland, Oregon. She was one of the tech people. At the company that shall not be named. Who else have we got? There, Treehouse, how incredible it is. And Valerie Young Baldwin is here as well. Valerie's really cool. I like that one. So, wow. Yes, very wow indeed. So the other story that you told me when we were on our walk, that little
Yes.
short story, do you want to share that one?
Oh gosh, I can't even remember
That
what
little
that
teeny
was.
tiny one about the 3 wishes.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Because this is a good one too. I like this story.
No, we went for a little walk this morning, and it was through these wonderful woods, and there was, the babbling stream running through over the rocks, and then Simon was talking about how in winter it was so beautiful, and you can just imagine all the snow settling, and the crunch, 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 a winter wonderland. And so it reminded me of a story that I hadn't heard in a long, long time, and I was probably a bit rusty telling it. But it's a Scottish story, and they're the 3 simpletons, 3 brothers, not the smartest, always getting themselves into trouble, and they happened to be walking through a forest in the middle of winter. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And as they were making their way through the trees, they saw all the silver, icy crystals, when suddenly they saw a little spider's web in the distance, and there was something caught in it. And as they went closer and closer to investigate, they saw that it was a tiny little fairy. "Oh, please help me. I'm trapped in this spider's web." And at first the brothers were, I don't know. But she said, "Please, if you help me, I promise I will give you a wish each." And so, of course, with this promise, they agreed to help. And so very gently, they began to undo all the strands of the spider's web until, she was free, and she spun around, flying here, there, everywhere. And then she said, "Okay, I promised you a wish each." And she went to the oldest brother, because the oldest brother always goes first. And she said, "What would you like?" And the oldest brother, he thought how silly he was and how wonderful it would be to be a little bit cleverer. So he said, "I want to be 10 times smarter than I am now." And so she said, "Are you sure that's what you want?" "Yes." Ooh, she flew round and round and round and round his head, and then touched him on the shoulder. Bing! And immediately he straightened up. His eyes grew bright, and there was a shimmer and sparkle that had not been there before. And immediately he began to think differently, and he began to spout out different languages and some algebra and calculus. And his 2 brothers were, this is exciting. So when the fairy flew over to the next brother and said, "What would you like?" And the second brother, he said, "Well, he really wanted to be better than his brother. So he said, "I want to be 50 times smarter. Are you sure that's what you want?" "Yes." So she flew around his head 3 times, landed on his shoulder, and suddenly he knew everything about geography. He could recite stories from history. He knew all the sciences. He knew all about astrology. He knew everything, and he couldn't stop talking. He said, "Oh my gosh, I know this, and I know this, and I know this." And the third brother was astounded, and he said, "Oh, I have to be better than this." And so when the fairy flew over to him and said, "And what would you like?" He said, "Well, I want to be 100 times smarter." "Are you sure that's what you want?" "Yes." And so she flew around his head 3 times, touched him on the shoulder, and turned him into a woman.
The end.
True story, that one, by the way.
Oh, I love it. I heard a very different version. You polished that up so much. For the telling you, this is awesome. This is awesome. Yeah, Valerie liked that one. Yeah. Monica, yes, my 1-year-old niece and 11-year-old niece are watching. So we shall make sure that we behave ourselves then. So this should go to all the websites. Mm-hmm. All the websites. This should go to both of the Facebook pages that I'm broadcasting this on, and also to YouTube. But that in the comments is Mara's website. It's a really tricky one, which is why I put it in there. And what I'll do is, I didn't take that off. That was a bit silly. So in case you want to know, Mara's website is marathestoryteller.com. So if you want to look up Mara and her stuff, because you got some amazing things on your website.
I think so.
I think so too. Do you have any stories on there? It's been a long time since I looked.
It's been a long time since I looked. I think we're quite bad as storytellers, perhaps. I don't. Yeah, I should update, but no, there's definitely links to some stories, and then I also do need to tidy up my YouTube channel, but there are definitely some stories on there as well, because I did a whole load actually during COVID.
We were both doing that. We're doing a similar type of thing, weren't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing that. I was doing. I can't even remember what I called it now. it was like a Wednesday show. I think it was something to do with Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Wednesdays with Simon or something.
Yeah.
Rubbish like that.
That's quite original.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It's all my brain could fathom at the beginning of COVID,
Yeah.
after everything was going on, and you were doing a similar thing. And
It was, yeah.
when we ended up talking to each other, we realized that there was not only were we doing a similar thing for kids, but some of the things that we were doing were also the same.
Yeah.
Like we were having people send pictures to us, and then you were doing it slightly differently. How were you doing yours? I was having kids send pictures to me, and I put them in a hat and I pull them out and I make up a story based on the pictures. How were you doing it?
Kids would send stories, and I would just use the stories and make pictures. Yeah. Make up new stories, and then I would like show them. So you'd have like Pirate Pete. No, there was Pirate Pete the pig, and it was this pig dressed up, with his pirate patch and his hook, and then his parrot on his shoulder. And then you'd also have somebody, like this beautiful ethereal girl falling through a forest, and then like scissor hands, robot scissor hands, and then like the flower fairy, and you had to somehow bring all of these different characters together and then create this whole new story. It was wonderful, really wonderful.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm starting it again.
Oh, you are?
I am indeed. Yeah, I'm working on it just now.
When will you have time to do that?
When I get back. Well, yes. So in the next month, in about a month's time, yeah, I've got them. But I'm doing something cool
with that.
With them.
With the stories?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Top secret. I don't want Simon to know just yet.
But what's the other project that you're doing?
In Kenya?
Yeah. The
The
M1.
M1. We're having a laugh about this because my logo has MWAN, and it's Msitu. M is for Msitu, and then Wa is of, and then N is for Ndoto, which is Forest of Dreams in Kiswahili. So the Forest of Dreams is this ridiculous, wonderful, incredible thing that I'm starting, terrifying thing that I'm starting. So I have lived in Scotland for a long, long time, and I still go back to Scotland because I love it. But Scotland really uses its stories in so many amazing ways. And having grown up in Kenya, I saw how Kenya really doesn't use our stories in any way. And so we are losing this incredible tradition and these beautiful histories and mythologies and folklore. They're just going because we don't actually put that much value on our stories. And so I have taken over this forest. Like, it's quite nice to say that. I have a forest. So it's 150 acres, and it's like filled with these beautiful baobab trees, meters wide, hundreds of years old baobab trees. So most of it
that's more than a yard.
That's more than a yard. It's pretty big. And so most of the forest is going to be sort of walkways and pathways, and we're going to be regenerating the forest and securing the perimeter so that all the flora and fauna can flourish. But we'll take 20 acres, and then we're going to put artworks and installations, and all of them. It's not just art for the sake of art. It's all rooted in some kind of story, whether it's history or myth or legend or the little folk tales. With Sungura is our trickster. Sungura is the rabbit. Or hare. So always, there's like lots and lots of hare stories. So we've got about 15 little hare sculptures, in different compromising situations or positions scattered through the forest. And then some will be quite big, and then we'll playing with digital technology. And I found since I'm here, I try to get a lot of things that I can't find in Kenya. So I go back to Kenya on Sunday, and so I bought magnifying glasses. These really cool little magnifying glasses, because one of the artworks is I'm getting tiny art, so little tiny pieces of art that depict some kind of story, and then I'm putting them onto the bark of a tree.
Okay.
And then I'll put a little fake panel over it with a little magnifying glass. So when you peer in, you kind of see this little world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool, because it will focus the person's attention on that. Because
so
of the magnifying
you're
glass.
Peering in, and then it's little magnified. So it's really
That's
to have
a cool idea.
A lot of fun. It's not just like a sculpture park where you go and look at sculptures. It's like a
More
treasure
interactive.
hunt, like a story hunt also, and it's good for little tiny 3-year-olds as well as grandparents. It's good for anybody and everybody. So yeah, planning to have a lot of fun in the telling of these stories, because I think when you associate fun with something, you're like, yes, I want more of that. So
right.
if there's a way of engaging people differently, then that would be a very beautiful thing. So that's the next chapter of Mara's life.
Yeah, Mara shared with me a video. This is ages ago, of this guy who's carving this. How long was it? It's like, it's huge, right?
It's huge. It's, I think, 9-10 feet tall.
9-10 feet tall
about
piece of tree.
big, that round.
Yeah,
Can you
okay.
even see that?
About 2 feet across.
Yes.
But the images on it, some of them are big, but some of them are really small.
Yeah.
And he's using these really basic
Like chisels.
tools, really basic chisels, and just wooden mallet and regular chisels that you get in a hardware store that are about 1,000 years old almost, right? And he's carving these amazing faces and animals and stuff.
He's telling the story of the land. So from like the sort of the hunter-gatherer time to the African migration systems, to the introduction of agriculture and how we were, domestic animals. And in Kenya, we've got the Arabs who came and populated and brought Islam to the east coast of Africa. And then they were doing the Zanzibar to the Middle East slave trade. And then you've got the Portuguese who came and built their forts and they brought Christianity. And then you've got the British who came and now
Sorry.
But it's all part of of history, and it's something, these stories, you can't change them, so they're in there. But it's just, we have to kind of find ways to be able to depict these stories and say, actually this is the real story of the land. And then just kind of tell it, because then, when you're seeing it in an art form as well, then you can ask all these questions and say, oh, what does that little boat mean? Or, because then we were looking at, because it's made of wood, it's like, how do you differentiate between a British person and a Portuguese person?
Right.
So it's like, okay, we'll change the hats.
Right.
Because the Portuguese had, I think, sort of rounder hats, and then the British had square hats. So you can see the differences in these tiny little sort of characters that are carved on this incredible artwork. And then we'll tell the story from the perspective of a baobab tree, like, over 1,000 years, this is what I have seen. And then there's a QR code, so you scan it. So as you're looking at it, you can also experience the story orally.
Now, does it go up spirally? Does the story spiral up? Or
it's it's round. It's kind of in sections. So the bottom is, hunter gatherer, and then so you can walk around it and you can see it progressing.
Okay. Now, talking of hats, this is kind of another sad thing. This is like the French Indian Wars, when the British came over here and were fighting the French and everything, and the English, they realized that if they just said, go and kill someone and bring back their finger or something to prove that you've killed them, that wasn't going to work, because they could actually kill British people as well. And the French did this to the British. So they asked the native peoples to scalp them, because the French wore their hair differently to the English. And that's
how the scalping tradition started.
I don't know if that's how it started, but it was how it was propagated and used. I thought,
didn't know that at all.
Yeah, because of the hairstyles. And then the French realized that they could also do that. So the French got the first Americans to scalp the British as well. Which is all, it's a horrible, horrible thing. But anyway, we can't end it on that.
No, we can't.
We can't end it on that.
What are the comments?
I don't know. Let me put my glasses back on. So, Alan DeBay's here. Alan DeBay, we can start now.
Wait, there's a question. My niece Melanie
is asking if giraffes can reach up to her treehouse windows.
Well, do you know something? I actually don't have any walls in my treehouse. The kind of walls, they go to about sort of waist high, and then I've got blinds that I can just lower down if I want some sort of privacy. So like I have half walls, and then I have all windows. So if there was a giraffe living close to me, it could absolutely reach its head in, and I would very happily give it some thorns and leaves to eat.
Thorns?
Well, they eat thorns, don't they?
I don't know.
Yeah. There's a place in Nairobi where you can feed them. You can feed them, and when they lick your hands, it's really, really rough, because they eat the acacia tree, and the acacia tree is covered with thorns.
Oh.
Yeah.
I remember having my hand licked by a giraffe in, I think it was London Zoo. Maybe it was Twycross Zoo. I think I was there when that happened in England.
Poor giraffe.
I know, right? Trying to lick my hand. I think we had sugar cubes on it, but I remember the tongue being really, because back in the 70s, give the animals sugar, they'll all eat sugar. Right?
Well, seeing as I'm here in America, I have to say that's what the Americans do to each other as well all the time. Right? There's so much sugar. Yes, there's sugar in everything.
I know, right? I know, it's terrible.
So yes, giraffes could reach into my treehouse, but so far we've had monkeys. I've had to chase monkeys out, and then the bush babies. To be honest, I think I've actually moved into the bush babies' house, because they just use it like a little playground, because we have these huge beams, and so it's actually quite fun. But
they're nocturnal.
They're nocturnal.
So do you get much sleep?
Yes, you can sleep. Yeah. But just sometimes in the morning, you probably have some bush baby poop to clean up. Yeah.
Do they curl up next to you? Like, do you wake up with a bush baby next to you?
So I rented the house out when I was away, and the lady said, "Oh my gosh, a bush baby came and jumped into bed with me." So I think they didn't know she was there, and so she was fast asleep, and then suddenly, they both got a real fright.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, do you know, we have had something else. We had a rat, and but it was one of those amazing rats. It's we have it's
Isn't
not
that an oxymoron?
No, it's like it's called the giant pouched African rat or a cane rat, and they're the rats that they use for sniffing out landmines.
Oh,
because they've got like exceptional noses. Their noses are as good as dogs. And I was looking and I thought, oh my goodness, there's an animal I don't really know what it is, because it was like the size of a cat.
That's without its tail.
That's without its tail. So it was like
That's
this.
a big rat.
And then the tail looked like a whip. It was this huge thing. And so I posted, we have a little WhatsApp group of the neighbors, and I said, I've seen this really strange animal and I don't know what it is. And so someone said, oh my goodness, it's an African cane rat, or a giant pouched African rat. But the good thing about those ones is they keep all the mouse and rats away.
Oh, that's good.
All the little annoying ones that eat your clothes and things.
Yeah. So does it have a pouch then for its babies? Is that why it's called a pouch? Or
I don't know why it's called a giant African pouch.
Does it have a purse that it carries around with it?
Yeah, I didn't go and investigate.
This is
that
my
now.
pouch. So that was an Australian accent, a very bad one.
Go to a Kenyan accent. Go and try.
I don't even know what a Kenyan accent is.
Yeah, so that's why it would be fun.
No, because that would no. I shall not. I refuse.
Melanie would like it.
Oh, I think.
Sorry, he's letting you down, Melanie.
I'd be skinned alive, I think. So I have.
Oh, what about rain? The shades keep you dry.
Well, if you're under the canopy of a tree.
No, actually, it's a really good question, because when we have the dry season and then the rainy season, and when it's the rainy season, it's really, 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 really rainy, and it comes in two areas. There's a little bit on the side of the house, and then the front of the house gets it big time. So when I go back, I actually have to I create these big like plastic shades that I have to put up extra, so they stop the rain from coming in. Because when I first built the tree house, I thought those little blinds would help. And they did a little bit, but then the rain still came in. So I do have to put plastic sort of sheets right on the very front of the house, and for about 3 meters on the side. The rest of the house is perfectly open because the rain doesn't ever come in from that side. So yeah.
Wow. So it only blows in one direction.
Only blows in one direction. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are getting a lot of education today, aren't we?
Mm.
We've educated with a few stories, and we've got these bush babies that I thought were Australian things, because they sound like bush babies.
Got fluffy tails. Is there anything fluffy in Australia? It's all sort of spiky and poisonous, isn't it?
No, they have.
I know koalas. Koalas are fluffy.
Koalas are fluffy.
Yeah. Everything else is scaly though. And
well,
hairy.
the birds aren't.
Well,
the birds are feathered. They're not scaly and spiky.
But some of them are.
Maybe.
Yeah.
They might have scaly birds.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
When we finish, we'll go online and have a look for scaly.
I bet Melanie knows.
Does Melanie know?
She's 11.
She knows everything. No, it's when she's 14, she'll know everything. So do you want to start something on the djembe?
Gosh.
And I'll just.
I didn't realize that I was going to embarrass myself in this.
This is where you fade out now. Except we can't do that.
Oh.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you.
It was a real treat to have Mara here and visiting. And Mo's fallen asleep down there. I tried to tell him not to ignore the story about those big rats that are as smart as dogs' nose. Yeah. Thank you, Mara, for joining me.
Thank you.
For saying yes to doing this,
Yeah.
because I do like doing this. It's a lot of fun.
It is fun. And thanks to you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for your wonderful questions. Bye.